Hello there, it's Jo from Minerva. Today we're going to look at a crafting technique for cross stitching. If you don't make garments but you love to craft, then you can check out our cross stitch materials, and I will show you how to do the basic cross stitch so that you can create your own designs. Okay, let's get started. So the fabric that you do cross stitch on is called Ada, and it comes in lots of different sizes. You can also get different colours. I'm going to be using a supersized one today so that I don't have to get a wobbly camera too close. So you'll see quite a scaled up version, but you can go right down to a tiny linen or a 14 count Ada, which is one you usually get in a kit. And I've got some threads and some tapestry needles. Now, a tapestry needle has a slightly more blunt end than a sewing needle, and that's to stop you catching all the threads in the Ada. So you can touch the end and you've got a hole to aim at, so you don't need a really sharp tip to puncture a hole. And it's got a larger eye so it can take a thicker thread. First, we're going to look at some counted cross stitch, and if you pick a kit that says counted cross stitch, then you'll be counting the crosses from the pattern sheet design onto your fabric. But so that you know that you're getting your design in the right position, you're going to mark out your fabric to find the center point. This is just a basting stitch, so find the halfway point horizontally and take a couple of squares at a time to make a running stitch, and you do this with a single layer of thread. And then repeat for a vertical line. And this is the center of your work. So you know that the center of your design will land on this center part. I mean, it doesn't matter if you go one stitch either side. What you can then do is draw a line on your pattern to indicate where the center is. This will stop you from starting the design too high up, and then as you carry on, running out of space at the top. And I made a huge mistake when I was early on cross stitching, where I had this beautiful symmetrical design of a cushion cover with mushrooms and blackberries and everything, and I had a very big piece of Ada, and I didn't do this part, and I started at the bottom, and as I worked up I realized I couldn't fit the rest of the design on, and actually I had to throw the whole thing away because I couldn't unpick all of the cross stitch and move the whole design down. So this just took a few minutes, but it makes sure that I'll get my design in the center of the picture. And it's also good if you're going to frame this, or you're going to use it in a birthday card, frame card, or you're going to make it into a cushion. If it was a bigger scale, you would have some working room around the outside. I'm just working on this fabric. I'm holding it because it's really nice and stiff, because it's a very big gauge of Ada, but you might need to do some more fabric preparation. So you can put your work into a hoop. They work by unscrewing the screw, taking the inner piece out, you put your fabric on top, put your hoop on top of that, screw it tight again, righty-tighty, and then you've got something to hold while you're working. If you've got a larger design, you might be working on a frame, so you will tack your piece of Aida to the cord on the frame, and then you can get a tight area for working, and you can also put this on a stand. So that's the fabric preparation. Now we want to get our threads. I've just made a really simple design to work on today so that you can follow along easily and you can also see it. So I've got 3 colours: purple, green, blue and pink. And you might get your threads in lots of different formats. So you might get it on a skein, and you can pull off a piece of your thread, cut it off, and then we're going to do some extra preparation. It's also good if you can just organise them a little bit, otherwise they all get knotted up. So if you have your threads and you've got a thread holder, that's what this is if it's got holes in. And you can just hook your threads onto here so that they all stay unknotted, and then you can just get one off when you want to. If you buy a kit, so there's lots of kits on our website, if you buy a kit, then you will get your threads all mixed in a bundle, and you need to separate them all into colours, and there will be a piece of card inside with holes. So this is a sort of temporary version of what I've just shown you. Sometimes they have the stitch colours on, sometimes they have a symbol on, and sometimes you have to just distinguish which colours are which. Depending on the gauge of your fabric will depend how many of the strands you take from each piece of floss. So each piece of floss is made up of more than one strand. It's very lightly plied, which means it's very lightly twisted just to hold them all together, but you will need to separate them, and your pattern will tell you if you need to take 2 of those strands or 3 of those strands, or sometimes for little details and outlining you will only use 1 of the strands. So I'll show you how to do that, but I'm going to be using all of mine because I've got a very large gauge fabric. But you split the threads at the end. So I'm going to split this one into 3 strands and 3 strands, and you hold the 2 strands. So I've got one under my little finger and one between my thumb and index finger, and I'm going to undo that twist and slowly take out 2 pieces. If you do it too quickly, it will just, the ply will turn into a knot. And you don't need really long pieces for cross stitch. About 20 inches long is your sort of max really, otherwise it'll try and twist back up and you'll get discrepancies in your thread finish. So you might need to split your thread into different amounts of strands. Whatever stranding you work with, you use that throughout your pattern. Knot the end, and it doesn't need to be a big knot, because otherwise if you frame your work it will be quite lumpy under glass. Some people cut their knot off once they've got the stitch working, so I can show you that as well. So the center stitch is a purple one, and it's this one here, and we're going to look at each of those holes as a little square, and I'm going to insert my needle from the back into the bottom left and go up to the top right, and then from the top left to the bottom right. If this was a smaller gauge, I could leave a bit of a longer tail, sew in the end and then cut off the knot. It depends what sort of finish you want on the back. To change threads, you go through some of the work at the back and then bring your needle through the working yarn. Again, leave a little bit on, and that can get worked into the back of the design so that all of this then becomes secure and doesn't come undone. So that's how you do the basic stitch. Let's see how you transfer that count by working out how to put the next colour on. So now I'm changing to pink. I've got my knot again. And this is where the counting comes in. So you correspond what happens around that centre stitch. So above that stitch is 3 pink stitches. On the back, I'm going to leave a longer tail this time and cut the knot off. I'll show you how it works. Top right, top left, bottom right. And now I want to bring that tail in the same plane that I'm working. And now, because I've sewn the end in, I can now cut the knot off, and then I have a much smoother and flatter back. Obviously, the bigger my design, the more I could sew in. I've got quite a small design here, so maybe I've cut the knot off a little bit prematurely at the moment. Okay, so all of my stitches are going in the right direction. So I've got the underneath one going in the same direction, and I've got the over the top one going in the same direction. You can do a few at a time, so if you can see easily on your pattern that you've got a whole row of 3 to go, then you can make a whole row of that stitch and then go back and fill them in. It's particularly useful if you've got a background area, so you might do whole rows of stitches going in one direction and then a whole row going back the other way. If you get where your stitch comes undone because you've gone in and out of the same hole, you don't have to do left bottom right, as long as you're keeping those stitches all going in the same direction. If you want to speed up, you can go in and out at the same time. So I can go into that one and out into that one, so that will speed me up. It's also useful if you're working on a frame. If you go in and out at the same time, you don't have to fiddle around stabbing from a blind side. You can turn your work if it's on a hoop, but on a frame you will be working in the same position all of the time. So I've used that centre mark, the purple stitch, to work out that I have 3 pink above, 3 pink to the left, 3 pink to the right, and 3 pinks below. The back, look, I've been slowly, as I've been going along, working in all of those threads. I'm going to tie that colour off. Little scissors are good, embroidery scissors or little hand sewing machine scissors, because you don't want to be sort of chopping large dressmaking scissors or chewing up with scissors that aren't sharp. Okay, and we can continue. So I've got 4 green, 1 above the pink, on the other side, and you keep comparing where each position is to the position on your pattern. You don't need to keep this in now, you can take this out because your design has started from the correct position. So you don't need to keep it in for the whole of your project, it's just to make sure that you start in the right place. This is an epic cross stitch gift that my daughter is working on. So she's got lots and lots of different colours. She's also been crossing off the areas that she's doing as she's worked them. She rolls down what she's done. She's got lots of different techniques for making sure that she doesn't make mistakes. She's very good at saying, well, that's gone wrong, I have to unpick it. So when you start working on large areas like this, especially where it's completely compact, if you go wrong, it won't get any better. You have to go back. It's counted, it's mathematical, it's a complete copy and replica of the pattern sheet. So if you went wrong, then all of the next bit would go wrong, and then the next bit. So there is an element of resilience where if you go wrong, you will need to unpick it. It's absolutely beautiful, actually. There are some brilliant cross-stitch kits on our website, so you can go and check those out. That was a gift, so I can't tell you where that one's from because I don't know. But this one is worked on a frame. If you're beginning, start with something small. So this is the same count that I've just been using. You get a slightly more pixelated cross-stitch version. It's not quite as sophisticated, but in a way, it's got a real avant-garde look to it. And this one stayed in the frame. And the edges I zigzagged on the machine. She cut it a bit small actually, so I had to sort of make a bit of a save there. And you can also put a piece of interfacing on the back. So I ironed a piece of interfacing on the back of the design, and that keeps all the threads from coming loose. It's sort of like gluing it down really. And then you can hand gather that in with a running stitch thread all the way around. As with all new crafts, don't start off too big. Start off with something small to see if you like it. And you don't need all the kit to start off. You can just start off with some embroidery threads, some needles and some scissors. The more kits you make, or the more projects you do, the more you will have leftover threads. And at first, if you're first working out of a biscuit tin, that's great. But my daughter then got to the stage where she had so many threads all knotted up in a tin that she takes all of the threads that are left over from all of her kits and she winds them onto bobbins. She's super organised because she puts the thread number on as well. So she can go back now and just choose a pattern design. Sometimes we have free pattern downloads and you can use your spare threads to make a new project. I hope you've enjoyed that video today, and maybe this is a craft that you might start to explore. All the products that I've used are listed below, but you can use the hashtag cross stitch and explore all our materials and products for this craft. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.